Let me read to you the paragraph from Wikipedia that made me extremely confused. The Duff received positive reviews from critics, with comparisons frequently being drawn to the cult teen films Mean Girls and Easy A. Kagan's screenplay and Whitman's and Thorne's performances also received acclaim. What? Now it just got interesting and confusing, and I feel like I am being gaslighted. Hello and welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel where we do miscellaneous things. I'm Zeleny. It's been a minute since I've covered a teen movie, one of my favorite genres of movies to critique. Today I wanted to talk about the Duff. Not my favorite Duff, Hillary, or my second favorite Duff, Haley, but the teen movie Duff from 2015. I think during my college years, which were 2013 to 2017, I was a little bit unplugged from pop culture. It's probably the time period where I've been the most unplugged. And I honestly missed a lot of the big blockbuster type movies that were in theaters at the time. And the Duff was one of them. When I saw the trailer for the Duff back then, I remember I was intrigued, but at the same time, like intrigued in like a junk food kind of way. It seemed right off the bat like a problematic concept. And recently the Duff came on Netflix, so I was eager to go ahead and give it a try. And I was like, okay, this is gonna be a straightforward video. This is going to be an obvious bad movie that I can just criticize and have fun with for y'all. I'll tell you if it's worth watching, but you can probably guess the answer to that. But once I got into my research about the Duff, I was confused. Let me get into about the Duff, about its plot first, and sort of recap the story of it. And in case you're not aware, Duff in this case stands for Designated Ugly Fat Friend. So let me just summarize the movie in case you haven't watched it. If you watched it, maybe skip this. Our main character is Bianca, who is a content high school senior with two girl best friends named Jess and Casey. Both her friends are very achieved and successful in school and extracurriculars, plus are very good looking and sought after by guys a lot. Bianca has a neighbor who happens to be a hot guy, who happens to be her best friend since childhood, named Wesley. They're all at this house party, the typical high school house party, and Wesley tells Bianca that she's the Duff in her friend group, which stands for Designated Ugly Fat Friend. And at first she's really insulted and hurt and is like, of course I'm not the Duff. And then she goes back and reflects on it and realizes, oh, Wesley's right, I am the Duff, and every friend group has a Duff. Bianca also has a mom who is a single mom, played by Allison Janney. And I should say Bianca's played by Mae Whitman, who I don't know her in much of her acting roles, but she did play the voice of Katara in Avatar: The Last Airbender, which was kind of really trippy to see Katara's voice doing awkward and gross and raunchy teen movie things, but that's besides the point. So Bianca, after she comes to terms with being a Duff, she unfriends her friends, the two girls, because she figures that way she won't be their Duff anymore. They have this whole montage where she's like, I'm unfollowing you on Snapchat, on Tumblr, on Vine, on Facebook, on it. Like, they had this whole thing. Of course, they had to mention all the technology of the time, which now sounds pretty dated looking back. So Bianca ditches her girlfriends. The poor friends don't know what's up. And then Bianca goes to Wesley, the hot, douchey neighbor boy, and tells her to unduff her. Basically, give her a makeover in exchange for science tutoring because he's failing his classes. There's also a popular mean girl who is Wesley's on and off again girlfriend, played by Bella Thorne, Hollywood trainer. Is Bella Thorne like the Lindsay Lohan of now? I think she kind of is. That's interesting. Anyway, Bella Thorne is the mean girl of this. And plus, Bianca has a crush on a guy named Toby, who's kind of like an artsy acoustic guitar hipster guy. Throughout Wesley and Bianca doing their makeover and all that, they start getting closer and bonding, obviously. Madison, who's Bella Thorne's mean girl character, starts getting jealous. They have this big montage at the mall where Wesley's making over Bianca and she's like pretending a mannequin is Toby, her crush, and being like really sexual with it for some reason, which this movie's PG-13 and I was like, this is pushing the PG-13. But anyway, this other mean girl sees her doing this sexual thing with the mannequin and records it and sends it to people at school. Her video goes viral and everyone knows about her crush with Toby, and also the teachers confiscate everyone's phones because cyberbullying or something. And everyone hates Bianca because it's her fault. Her viral video made the teachers take away all their phones. But regardless of all this havoc, Toby ends up asking Bianca out anyway. And then she finds out on the date with him that he's just befriending her, asking her out to get close to her girlfriends, the hot friends she had at the beginning. And Wesley, like, they had gotten really close and kind of made out at some point, like, as a joke, but not really. She showed him her secret rock in the forest that she loves, and then he showed that rock to Bella Thorne, and she got mad that he showed off her secret rock spot to Bella Thorne. That was the low point of the movie. She goes back to her girlfriends. It's like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have ditched y'all. And they make her over, but like, they still give her a makeover, but it's like as herself, and they make her sort of hipster. They all go to the dance, and Wesley and Bianca profess their feelings for each other. They live happily ever after. Also, throughout this whole thing, Bianca is tasked to write an article about homecoming. Throughout the whole movie, she's not knowing how to approach it, and then at the end, she approaches it with her whole Duff experience, and she releases her article, and all of the kids in school are inspired about her Duff story. I think the overall message that they try to drive home is that no matter what people look or act like, we are all someone's Duff. So this movie was actually based on a book. The book was released in 2010 and written by Cody Keplinger, who is a woman and was 17 when she wrote it. That's pretty young, so I excuse any plot holes that she may have had in this. But I tried to read into at least the synopsis of the book, and they did change a lot for the movies. The book was actually a lot more raunchy and dark than the movie. Bianca's parents were having a really messy divorce, and the mom was like never home, and the dad was home and an alcoholic and like kind of aggressive and destructive. Pretty early on in the book, Bianca is sleeping with Wesley just like casually and regularly, which I was surprised by in the movie. She never slept with anyone, I don't think. That's not common of teen movies, usually. That's kind of interesting. The book is quite different, and it probably has a lot of details that are different, but I just read the synopsis. Overall, this movie was not a box office flop. I actually kind of expected it to be, but it wasn't. It grossed $43 million at the box office and had a budget of only $8.5 million, so pretty good, especially for this caliber of movie. Is this movie worth watching? The short answer is no, but I'm going to tell you a lot of reasons why. However, I am just so confused at the amount of positive reviews I found while doing my research. Like, I am appalled. I'm disgusted. I swear, I thought this movie was going to be a straightforward dumpster. Like, it's very... I'll get to my critiques in a bit. But I'm just appalled at these reviews. So on Rotten Tomatoes, take a quick guess what the percent is on Rotten Tomatoes. It's 73%. Like, I was shocked when I saw this number. Like, what the actual fuck? There's so many movies I love that are like in the 20 to 30% range, and I think have a lot of merit and good things about them, and this movie was garbage. Like, it's problematic, it's messy, it's not that funny, it's kind of cringy, it's dated, the story isn't that good, and it's filled with every cliche of every teen movie possible. Like, I just don't understand how it has a 73% on Rotten Tomatoes. Here are some of the positive reviews I saw. On Rotten Tomatoes, the site's critics' consensus states, "The Duff doesn't achieve teen movie greatness." Accurate. but offers enough of a postmodern twist on the genre to recommend, and boasts typically great work from star Mae Whitman. Lindsay Barr of the Associated Press said, "While it's neither as biting as Mean Girls nor as sweetly referential as Easy A, the earnest and sometimes amusing The Duff is a fine addition to the canon." Kyle Smith of the New York Post: "He almost had me in the first half, but the winsome comedy is a little low in the stakes department, not to mention predictable, but it gets an A for charm." Bilge Ebiri of New York Magazine said, "Why is it so wonderful? Because wit and charm matter, and The Duff has a good deal of both. The cast will be stars. The gags will be immortal, and you'll be watching this movie years from now." I guess that last part is right, but it's my first time watching it. Like, this is never a movie I would revisit. So, again, it is not worth watching. I'm just trying to give y'all what the critics say out there. But, like, this review is just so over the top. Like, the cast will be stars. No, Bella Thorne, yeah, kind of, but she's a starlet, like, for partying. The gags will be immortal. I had to watch this movie twice because I watched it like a week ago and I already forgot everything about it for this video. So I had to watch it again and take better notes. I am taking volunteers to cyberbully these critics. There were a couple negative reviews. This was one of the most negative I found. So go and opposite cyberbully Amy Nicholson of LA Weekly. "The Duff doesn't seem to know what its point actually is. It's pro self-acceptance and also pro makeover. It's about liking yourself and how you'd like yourself better with a boyfriend." That's exactly true. Like, the amount of positive reviews for this movie is legitimately suspicious. Like, I'm not joking. I sense foul play here. Like, I sense that this movie, like, bought some reviews. Like, I'm not buying it. Also, I feel like the main person paying the reviewers was Mae Whitman's PR team, the lead character actress, the voice of Katara, because every review was like, "The movie sucked, but Mae Whitman is amazing. She's a genius." And, like, she was fine. She was okay. But, like, they are acting like she is. Literally, let me read you again the review. Inku Kang of The Wrap said, "Mae Whitman reveals herself to be one of the funniest actresses of her generation in a spot-on and endlessly quotable take on teenage drams in 2015. Endlessly quotable? I'm telling you, I watched it a week ago and forgot everything about it. I couldn't write a script for this video without rewatching it. Claudia Puj? I don't know. Claudia of USA Today said, "Mae Whitman is the best thing here, and the funny actress deserves better material than what's offered in this derivative and superficial ode to teen self-acceptance." So that was a negative review to the movie, but Mae Whitman is untouchable. So something is sus. Mae Whitman, girl. Overall, I feel like this movie was created to make, like, a shocking trailer. It's one of those teen movies where you watch the trailer and you get the whole plot out of it. They even have four different trailers, so you can go watch all of them and get the plot in, what, like 10 minutes? They show, like, from the beginning to the end of it, like, it's just one of those movies. And it feels like one of those movies that draws you in from, like, a very shocking trailer because it's introducing a new term to the public watching the trailer, and it makes you sort of apply it to your life and see how you fit in. So, like, the big message of the trailer is, like, if you don't have a Duff in your friend group, then it's you. And then it makes everyone be like, "Oh my god, I'm the Duff, what?" They're banking on that, like, shock factor and, like, relatability to it to make you intrigued to want to see it. And it's just not a strong movie. It really does feel like a much cheaper version of Easy A. So I would recommend not watching this movie and going to rewatch Easy A instead, because Easy A feels like a very similar type of movie, but done really well. And the fact that this movie and all of these reviews is getting compared to Easy A and Mean Girls, it's just offensive. Like, those movies are cult classics. Yeah, they have problems and they're not, like, squeaky clean, perfect. Like, they have problematic elements to it, but the plot and the story and the acting is all really great in those movies, and I'm not gonna accept this movie as part of that group. It's not sneaking its way into that party. I was appalled by everyone making those comparisons. I am making the comparison to Easy A because Easy A is like the good version of this movie. So let me tell you why exactly I did not like this movie. Here are my critiques. So the whole thing about the Duff and how they set it up, at the beginning of the movie, they even say it, is that they're trying to break like teen movie stereotypes. They're like, oh, nowadays the jock plays video games and the popular girl is on antidepressants and the geeks rule the world. And it's like, okay, yeah, it really sets up that they're trying to break what we typically expect of high school cliches and cliques. But then the movie goes on to literally put in every trope and high school movie cliche they could. I'm just gonna list them, and bear with me, it's a long ass list. So they have the hot neighbor boy trope, which is like, oh, you're gross because I grew up with you, and I can see in your window. It's exactly like You Belong With Me, Taylor Swift, that exact thing. It's such a cliche. Then we have the typical makeover try on clothes montages, which, okay, fine. That's a trope that's in every teen movie, and I like seeing it. And then the whole main plot of asking the hot guy to make over the lame girl in exchange for tutoring. That's a very cliche plot line to do. To All the Boys kind of has that a bit of a dynamic. It's like having to make a deal with the opposite sex guy you love to hate and end up with, that kind of thing. It's the same thing in She's All That and He's All That. It's that type of plot. It's very overdone. Their whole relationship of like the playful banter of like, I hate you, I'm disgusted by you. She's always disgusted by him, even when he's like glistening and shirtless, and she's like, ew, like, you're disgusting. Like, please, it's such a cliche and so fake. I hate it. They also had music with the EDM beat drop of Walking In. That's very cliche of the time period. Also, like, naming all the social medias, like I mentioned before, is very, like, cliche and bound to be very dated unless you do it very cleverly. The whole single mom thing is a big trope. She is the career woman girl boss flavor of single mom, which was refreshing, and Allison Janney was a cool part of the movie, but the single mom trope, oh my god, this cliche is something we don't talk about enough, but in teen movies or in movies in general, but teen movies, I guess, that try to tackle social media topics, they act like anybody decides what goes viral. And it's just so funny because there's several times in the movie where the mean girls see the embarrassing video and they're like, ooh, this is a good video. Should we make it go viral? They don't even say that. They're like, viral? Viral. You don't decide what's viral, girl. Like, that's not how social media works. Ooh, another whole cliche in the movie was the article thing, which I guess is slightly refreshing to be in a teen movie rather than a rom-com, like a chick flick rom-com where she's works at a magazine. But it's the same trope of the girl gets an article assignment she hates about something girly and whatever, and by the end she has this big epiphany about what to write about, and it's so like, that trope didn't even need to be in there, and they put it in. Also, the main character being like a pick-me, which was definitely a thing of the times, to have a protagonist that's like more of a real woman, and like real as in like less polished or just like relatable, and she like gets along with the guys, and it's very that. And it was refreshing at the beginning when she had two close girlfriends, but then the whole movie she was like being a pick-me and choosing the douchey neighbor hot guy instead of her friends. There's a cliche of the guy she liked in the end being an asshole. Like, that's very done in teen movies. They also decided to add in these random ass VFX, like arrows pointing at the Duffs in the room kind of thing, but the VFX were just so bad. Or like when she got asked out, there were like fireworks, and they were just like poorly made VFX. I mean, the budget wasn't that big, so I imagine a lot of the budget didn't go to the VFX, but just don't put them or do them well. Like, it just makes the whole movie feel very cheap. A lot of movies do VFX and do it well, like annotation on the screen. I think of like Crazy Rich Asians did it really well. Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, which is the Lindsay Lohan movie I always talk about, has a lot of really campy, weird VFX because she tells a lot of like dramatized stories about her life and they show them sort of animated. And that's a 2004 movie and it looks great and holds up. So it's kind of like there was just no taste or aesthetic to the VFX and they just look like cheap like Microsoft Word like arrows. And another cliche they mentioned, which was a very small part of the dialogue, but I definitely noticed it. One of Bianca's best friends from the beginning is Latina, and she's also a hacker, and they do the whole cliche hacker scene where she's like with the 3 screens writing code. Like, okay, whatever. They call the Latina girl spicy, which I'm so sick of this, and it upsets me because it's still done all the time. Even just, I'm watching Dancing with the Stars right now, and they'll call a Latina spicy. So, like, it's still very much accepted in society, and I'm just, like, over it. Like, we're not spicy, bitch. And girl, the final line where the guy Wesley chooses Bianca in the end. Of course, Bella Thorne wins Homecoming Queen, and the guy Wesley wins Homecoming King. He's like called up to be the king. He starts going and then stops and looks back at Bianca.
Aren't you gonna go get your crown?
And he's like,
no. I'm gonna get the girl.
And walks to Bianca. It's so like, it feels like a parody of teen movies and not on purpose, sadly. And then overall, I feel like the whole concept of the Duff is very problematic and just causes more insecurity with teens than it helps. Like, introducing a whole term for bullies to potentially use on somebody, like, I don't think I or a lot of people would have ever heard of a Duff. With this movie coming out, it's just throwing that term out into the world for anyone to use, kind of. Not that it caught on, this movie was pretty cringy and lame, so the slang didn't catch on that much that I know of. But like the whole term is very fat-phobic and rude. It just like sets teens up for like comparing themselves to their friends, makes them think about that a lot. The whole message, like, I just feel like does more harm than good, because at the end, yeah, the message is good, like, oh, everyone's a Duff, everybody's somebody's Duff, and there's always going to be someone prettier than you, but the whole time we're focusing on this Duff concept, and there's like a whole thing where Wesley tells her, like, oh, you don't actually have to be ugly or fat, and I think that was like them trying to mitigate the situation and not make it like he was calling her fat, because that's a whole other critique of this. Like, the main character isn't even fat or ugly, and that's like, I think that's a point, but also like, how are people that are bigger than her supposed to feel about this? Like, it's just very fat phobic at its core, and I think that's a big problematic thing. And even back then, why I didn't like make it a point to go watch it. Like, Easy A at least was about like sex and like gossip, and that is what made it interesting, and it wasn't about people's looks, which is like, this movie is very focused on people's looks and success and status. So those were a lot of the tropes, and here's a couple of other small critiques I had for other things. One line in particular, which I know I'm being petty about, but I have to say it, and he even says it in the trailer, but the guy Wesley is doing his makeover on her. He says that he knows she's wearing the wrong bra size because he's watched a lot of Project Runway.
Your clothes fit weird because you wear the wrong size bra. Boom. I watched a lot of Project Runway. What's up?
That's not what Project Runway is about, sweetie. I can't let that go. As an avid Project Runway fan, that is not what they do on Project Runway. They don't talk about bra sizes at all. It's about fashion. Also, like, the whole confiscating of everyone's phones and a lot of talk about social media and the internet. The teachers are really scared of it. They define the term cyberbullying in it and are like, these kids are cyberbullying each other, and they hate it. So I didn't like the anti-technology sentiments of this movie, and they felt very surface level. If you're gonna critique technology, do it right, and that's one of the biggest ways that teen movies fail for me. Like, it's not that big a deal. That's why it's at the end of my critiques, but it just makes me annoyed when social media is misrepresented or over. It's like a big bad wolf. I don't know what it's like, a scapegoat for things, and it's too hard and nuanced for teen movies to address. They should just keep social media in the background. So let me get into the few positives, because almost pretty much every movie has some positives. I'm not gonna not give credit where credit is due. I think Allison Janney was like a great part of the movie. Her lines were some of the most funny to me as the mom. She always does a great job as an adult in these teen movies. She was great in 10 Things I Hate About You. And I also like Ken Jeong. He did the journalism teacher role, and he was really funny as well. So they're good actors, so it makes sense why they were good in this movie. Also, like, there's a whole thing where Allison Janney is trying to mention duck face and take selfies and do duck face, which is crazy. In 2015, it was like a whole term to say duck face, and that's like how people took selfies. I don't know why that was the thing. And that part was kind of cringy because it felt dated, but it also felt like, oh, nostalgic. Like, selfies were so simple back then. Allison Janney keeps calling it duck head. She's like, I'm doing duck head, and the daughter's like, it's duck face, mom. Also, I liked the teachers freaking out about the technology was annoying for the most part, but there were a couple of good lines in there. The principal that's really scared about cyberbullying, he's like, have you not seen Catfish or Pretty Little Liars? Which actually is a great reference that works here, because Pretty Little Liars is about like them getting texts from an anonymous creepy person. And the principal, when he's like telling everyone to turn in their phones, he's like, YOLO terrorists will not be tolerated. That line kind of cracked me up. A couple of other random things / positives. The most realistic chemistry notebook I've ever seen in a teen movie was in this. Good job, props. This might be a little out there, but I like seeing in teen movies or in just older movies like from the 2000s or whatever. Not old, but old-ish movies. I like to catch when they talk about a concept that doesn't have a name yet, but now that I'm watching it, it does have a name. For example, Bianca, when she starts realizing that he's right about her being the Duff, at first she's like in denial, and then she accepts it. She's like, you know how the Joker fell into the vat of acid and became the villain to Batman? She's like, this is my vat of acid story. And it's funny because that's a concept that now we know on the internet as my villain origin story. So she didn't say those words, villain origin story, but she articulated the concept. So I find that interesting. It's super random when it happens, but I find it interesting to see in movies when they have something like that, like a concept that hasn't been explicitly named by society yet. I don't know if there's a word for that. There probably is. What's it called? Anthropology? Is that what this is? I don't know. And then hear me out. Okay. One final weird connection. This movie has a pretty good soundtrack. I recommend the soundtrack for 2015 vibes. Like, it's not a timeless soundtrack, but it had some great songs. It had Boom Clap by Charlie XCX on there, which I was like, oh, cool, I recognize this. It's interesting because when I looked up the soundtrack, Boom Clap wasn't on there, even though it was in the movie. But when I looked it up, Boom Clap was actually in the soundtrack for The Fault in Our Stars. I didn't see that movie, so I'm assuming Boom Clap shows up in it. I'm not sure where it would fit in, but okay. And then I recently saw a tweet that Mae Whitman was almost cast as the lead of The Fault in Our Stars. Full circle. That connection, there's nothing, but it was a connection. So that's all I have for the Duff. Please let me know if you've watched it or plan to watch it now that it's on Netflix. I would love to hear about it. I hope this recommendation helps if you were considering it or not. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed. I put out new videos twice a week about pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things. And you can follow me at Miscellaneous on Instagram or Twitter to find out about new videos, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!